All right. Good morning, everyone. It is my pleasure to call this meeting to order. Dr. Leslie, if we can have you do roll call, please.
Yes. Anita Locklear.
Here.
Calvin T. Locklear.
Present.
Will Paul. Stephen Bell.
Here.
Tamara Carter.
Present.
Stacy Lynch. Angelique Jacobs.
Here.
Kristen Oxendine.
Here.
Jeremiah Moore. Candace Revels.
Present.
Dorothy Yates.
Present.
Representative Edward Goodwin. Representative Jared Lowry. Dr. LaRonda Lowry. Dr. Tiffany Locklear.
Here.
Dr. Olivia Oxendine. Chair, we have quorum.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Leslie. Well, good morning, everyone, here in person and virtually. It is my honor to kick off our very first SACE meeting of the year. I hope y'all had a great summer and a productive start to your school year. I hope everyone is navigating Infinite Campus and all the new things for this year well, or as best as you can. So we have a packed agenda for today. What I would love to get us started is if we can get an approval of the agenda. So I do need a motion for us to move forward.
Dorothy Yates, so moved that we approve the agenda for today.
Angelique Young, second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? So moved. We have approved the agenda for today, October 30th, 2025. Can I also get a motion to approve the May 2025 minutes?
Candace Revels, I make a motion to approve the May 2025 minutes. Tamara Carter, second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
And any opposed? All right. So move to approve the May 2025 minutes. Thank you, Dr. Leslie, for adding those together. We also need to swear in 2 of our new members. So I'm going to have y'all stand up here with me, Kristen and Anita. Dr. Leslie, am I able to hold this? Okay. We're going to try this out. Excuse me, Miss Dorothy. All right. All right, so I will read the State Advisory Council on Indian Education Oath of Office, and if you agree, please say I do afterwards. So I do solemnly swear or affirm that I will support and maintain the Constitution and laws of the United States, and that I will faithfully discharge my duties as a member of North Carolina's State Advisory Council on Indian Education. I will, to the best of my ability, advise the State Board of Education on effective educational practices for American Indian students, explore programs that raise academic achievement and graduation rates among American Indian students, advise the State Board of Education and the Department of Public Instruction on ways to improve coordination and communication for the benefit of American Indian students affected by state and federal programs administered at the state level, prepare and present an annual report to the State Board of Education, tribal organizations, and to conferences at the annual North Carolina Indian Unity Conference, and advise the State Board of Education on any other aspect of American Indian education when requested by the State Board, educators, parents, students, business leaders, and other constituents. If you affirm, please say I do. I do. Well, Ms. Kristen and Ms. Anita, it is my honor to welcome you to the State Advisory Council on Indian Education. Congratulations. Thanks for being here. Dr. Leslie, would you like a picture? Oh, yeah, let's get a picture.
And Dr. Bell, I just want to let you know Dr. Oxendine has joined us online. Dr. Oxendine, just want to confirm you can hear us.
Yes, absolutely. I hope you can hear me.
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Great.
Congratulations. So before I turn it over to our state superintendent, I did want us to start off in continuing one of his pillars is helping us celebrate excellence in public schools. What I'd love for us to do, since it's our first meeting, if you could share your name, and then I want you to share something excellent that you're seeing, whether it be a student that you work with, or a staff or faculty member, or a school or a community program. Would love to just get some shout outs and share your name. So I'll start us off and model. So my name is Stephen Bell, proud member of the Lumbee tribe. I would like to shout out one of my former students, Kaden Laurie. She was just crowned as Miss Guilford Native American Association. We've not had a Miss Guilford Native in about 13 years. So she's really paving the way for a lot of our students. She just graduated from Ragsdale this past May and has been doing some incredible things representing us. So I wanted to shout out Kaden. So anybody else want to start off after me?
I'm just kind of going through my brain. Sorry, I'm Candace Revels, and I'm in Cumberland, and I have so many examples, but I think I want to shout out my students, my high school students. I have three different high schools who they're taking the initiative to promote their own culture and put on their own programs this year without any prompting or asking. They got the people, got the list of what they want to present, met with their principals. Some of them, they invited me to meet with the principals with them. So I think that just shows them taking ownership. And that's Bella Goings, Cypher, McGee, and Elizabeth Sanchez.
Good morning, Tamara Carter, and I'm with Columbus County Schools, and I would like to celebrate that our American Indian students at Hallsboro Artesia Elementary School exceeded growth for the 24-25 school year.
Nice.
I'm Dorothy Yates, and I am on the North Carolina Commission of Indian Affairs Education Committee. And I would just like to give a shout out to all of those people who volunteer their work for the Education Committee with the Commission. And we ask that any of you that have specific concerns or areas that we need to address, if you would please let us know. And I would like to tag on our Title VI Indian coordinators across the state, the marvelous work that they do with our American Indian students on a daily basis.
Thank you, Ms. Dorothy.
Angelique Young here. I work with Clinton City Schools, and we're proud to say that even though we don't have enough Native American students to have an official subgroup, our Native American students did meet growth. And so we are very, very proud of them.
That's awesome. Thank you.
Hi, Anita Locklear from Johnson County, Lumbee. I would like to highlight two areas. One is our work with our Johnson County Indian Education Program. We're excited about trying to connect our students in an urban setting with their culture. Also, a shout out that they all met growth and exceeded growth this past year.
I'm Kristen Oxendine, Scotland County Schools. So I also have two things. One, we just had our first parent committee meeting for Indian education, and we had a lot of participation. Second is, while I was in classrooms, I want to shout out some of our middle school teachers for incorporating small groups and trying to differentiate instruction to meet our students where they are.
Thank you. My name is Calvin Locklear. I'd like to highlight a couple of things. Anita didn't talk about her daughter, Natalie, but Natalie, I think, is doing some really cool stuff. She just moved from undergraduate to master's degree at UNC Chapel Hill. That was really awesome, and I just want to highlight her. And I highlight her because she was also an ACES member. And so the ACES National Conference is actually taking place right now. There's a lot of our folks are out there from North Carolina. ACES has been doing a lot of good work as far as, nationally for Native people. Recently, we've had a lot of participation at ACES from a national level from North Carolina. So I want to highlight that and encourage any of you who want to have an ACES chapter or just interested in getting students into STEM in your areas to work with our national or our North Carolina professional chapter, and we can help you along those lines. Thank you.
Thank y'all for sharing. Anyone virtually want to give any shout outs to students or staff or programs?
Sure, Tiffany Locklear from UNCP. I certainly want to give a shout out to UNCP. We just received just under $3.5 million in the School of Education, 3 grants, all focused on American Indian teachers and administrators. So certainly excited about all 3 of those grants and the faculty and the students that they will support. Also want to give a shout out, of course, to Old Mainstream Academy, who received a B on their report card this year. Super duper excited for them. It certainly shows a sign of growth, resilience, and commitment. So congratulations to the Firebird family. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Tiffany. Anyone else virtually would like to introduce themselves and give any shout outs?
This is Olivia. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Go ahead.
Yes, I was going to say a couple of things in my presentation, but I'll go ahead and take just a couple of seconds and say I'm listening to such good news about first of all, good morning to everyone. I'm so sorry I was unable to attend your meeting in person today. I had no idea that when I got home late yesterday afternoon that I'd have to go to the doctor, and I'm afraid I have COVID.
Oh no.
I was not, I really had some other reasons to keep me from being with you in person, but I certainly didn't know it would be something like this. So you don't need to be around me at all. But anyway, I just heard such good news. I think 2 systems there, I may have missed one, but 2 school systems that met growth in your subgroups or exceeded growth. That is such good news. And sometimes all too often we hear the gloomy side of the achievement of our American Indian students. So it was, from my vantage point here, just hearing those good comments come across the virtual world just excites me. And the B, the grade letter of a B for the Old Mainstream is marvelous. And the grants that UNCP has received, I'm very happy. So those are my comments. And ACES, I still want to say to Calvin, I really want to get you plugged in, and Dr. Leslie maybe can help you do this, to our science team there at DPI to educate the science consultants about ACES, and maybe through some collaboration between the two, you and others inside the building, some marvelous things can come out of that. So those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Olivia. We hope you speedy recovery, and hope your symptoms are not too bad.
Thank you so much.
So I think, is that everyone online? So I'm going to turn it over to Superintendent Mo Green at this point. But thank you all for sharing just some shout outs. As you can see in the handout that you received, pillar number 7 is celebrate the excellence in public education. And so I thought that was just kind of one nice way just to kick us off for our meeting. So Mo Green, thank you so much for being here today. As a former Guilford County Schools superintendent, I'm excited to see you. So thank you for being here.
Absolutely. Good morning to everyone. Certainly my honor and privilege to be here this morning. And what a wonderful way to start off a meeting, right? To celebrate wonderful things going on with students, the great work that staff and students have done over the course of this past year, some personal things as well. I just love that, right? And as Dr. Oxendine shared, oftentimes we hear about things where we have work to do, right? but we have to be reminded that we actually have wonderful things happening. And so what a wonderful way to start off a meeting. We'll try to be sure that others use this model as well. All right. Also want to just spend just a moment certainly recognizing the great work that this council does and has done in prior years. With, in particular, the reports that are put out and the elevation of American Indian education across our state. And so look forward to continued work, continued great work. Look forward to recommendations that this council will bring forward, even as we explore the data and needs for improvement. Right. I do want to spend most of my time this morning focusing on the strategic plan that was approved by the State Board of Education unanimously. Give you just a sense of how we went through the process of getting to that plan's adoption by the State Board in September. And explore maybe one or two or so connections between that plan and the work of this council so we can see the connections. But if I don't say anything else today, please understand, you don't hear anything else today, please understand that for the plan that I'm about to talk about, for it to be successful, the work that you and the council does collectively and you do individually is critical to its success. And so please understand that. So let me just talk about the vision for the state's strategic plan for North Carolina's public schools. The vision is achieving educational excellence. It has three major components. They are high academic achievement, character development, and then this focus on an audacious goal of having the very best public education system in the entire country by 2030. I believe that this vision, if you will, aligns certainly with the vision of this council of having every American Indian student graduating from an academically rigorous and culturally relevant high school as well-prepared lifelong learners as well. And so strong connection there. We have to be clear-eyed as we look at our data at a statewide level, because you will see, and I handed out a one-pager, and Doctor, and I got the sense that we call folks by their first name, even after Doctor, so Dr. Leslie. If you will be sure that the folks who are not with us today can also get a copy of that one-pager, or certainly know how to access on the North Carolina Department of Public Instruction site. But you'll see in there that the plan, the statewide plan, has in it 8 pillars. And then underneath each pillar, there are measures. There will be actions, of which there are 110 actions for us to launch over the course of the next 4.5 years that will get us to best in nation. You will also see that there are best in nation metrics, where we are really trying to define sort of where North Carolina is currently as compared to the rest of the nation. So we can then see where we need to get to be to really truly be best in nation. So everything from graduation rates, the 4-year cohort graduation rate, where this North Carolina is right in the middle of the country, if you will, at 25th position with the latest data. And I should note that this would be the data that's available across the nation. So in some instances, including in this one, it's a bit dated because we were able to announce just a month or two ago that North Carolina's graduation rate for the 24-25 school year is at 87.7%, right, which is a percentage point plus above what is in the strategic plan. That is the highest graduation rate that North Carolina has ever experienced. We'll also note that as we then look at subgroups or groups, including American Indian would be slightly below that, right? And so we know, and that's why I say the work that you do becomes critically important. For us to get to our goal of 91%, we've got to have all groups obviously improve their graduation rate, but we've got to have certainly American Indians be among those that raises its numbers. You can also look at other of those best in nation measures. I won't slow down to talk about all of them, but you'll see that they cover what I would call more traditional academic measures, like how our students are doing on the ACT exam, to participation and performance on advanced placement exams, to how we are doing with regards to the National Assessment of Educational Progress in 4th and 8th grade reading and math, where cohorts of our students take those exams every other year. I also want to lift up career and technical education, because I believe this is also an important measure for us, both participation and ultimately performance. You'll see for participation, North Carolina already is essentially at the top. We're in second place with regards to participation of our students in career and technical education courses. There isn't a national measure that we locked in on, and so we may come back to one, but you'll see right now one thing we are looking at is the number of industry credentials that are available that our students have taken advantage of and have earned. And you can see hundreds of thousands of industry credentials earned by our students in the last academic year. You'll also see that if you look at the full plan, we'll ultimately have a best in nation measure around character education, right? So there isn't, as best as we can tell, such a measure that exists, and so we may come up with something ourselves as a way to really lift up how important character education is in the work that we're doing. And then finally, there's a best in nation measure that's really more of a state measure, but we want to be sure that the rest of the nation is understanding, because the entire nation, or most of it, is under similar sort of pressures, where there are now many, many more opportunities for students to choose other educational opportunities. And so we want to be sure that in this competitive environment, we are doing all we can to have the number of students increase in our public schools. And so you'll see sort of where we are and where we want to go with that measure. And you'll see also that that measure of where we want to go is actually back to where we were several years ago. So we've been losing enrollment in our public schools. We got to turn that around as we increase our performance and the metrics that I've just discussed, as we do a lot of the strategies, as we celebrate our public education system. I believe we will see that turn around. As I mentioned, then there are 8 pillars. Not going to go through all 8 pillars with you this morning, but would encourage you to spend the time looking at the full strategic plan, which again you can find on the North Carolina Department of Public Education, Public Instruction website. You'll see it at the very top of the website. A click that you can click on to find then the full plan. But I do want to hit just a couple. One is Pillar 1, which is preparing each student for their next phase in life. And here, this is critically important that you hear what I'm about to say. I think that we have to continue to focus, obviously, on increasing our graduation rate, but I want us to visualize what it would look like to have each and every one of our students not only graduate, but take and pass a college level course while still in high school, be it an advanced placement exam or something through the Career and College Promise opportunities or the dual enrollment opportunities, and take and pass a career and technical education course, and find a way for students to be of service to their communities, showing their level of character, if you will. So as we roll that out, that is what we are going to be looking for each and every student, because to me that then will show that while students obviously continue to grow, they are, as they leave us, prepared for whatever's next for them, be it college, be it work, etc. Pillar 2, I do want to focus on is you'll see revere public school educators. So we're focused obviously on public school educators. The term educators is broader than just teachers. This is to include all educators, custodians, cafeteria workers, bus drivers, all who have a part to play in the education of our tomorrows. And then the word revere is intentionally chosen, has been intentionally chosen, because this is a word that, for me, and I think as folks hear it, signifies how important it is that we recognize that educators are part of a noble profession, right? They are doing transformative work. They need to be not just respected, but revered. And so you'll see that there are a number of strategies under there as we try to lift up our work in this regard. There are recruitment efforts that we're going to have to engage in. I believe very strongly we've got to recruit folks from across various cultures and races, to include American Indians as well. And so there will be strategies and efforts to do that. Certainly, Pillar 3 is around engaging parent, community, parent, caregiver, and community support. Y'all know how critically important this is, that the work that educators do, while great, is insufficient. We've got to be sure that parents and community members come along and do their part as well. And so there'll be various strategies to focus on there. And then Pillar 7 and 8, I do just want to spend a moment on, because they do highlight what we already engaged in this morning, right? Celebrating the excellence in public education. Be sure that the good stories are being told, even as we work on issues, right? Your report from 2025 highlights absolutely opportunities for improvement, but I believe that the way that you get there is to celebrate good things, show what can be done, right? Here's a school, for example, that has exceeded growth, right? So no longer is it a case that we can say, well, we can't do it. Let's celebrate that and then show to others that, in fact, this can be done. This will bring more and more and more folks along as we do that. And then certainly galvanizing champions to fully support public education, which is, and invest in public education, which is Pillar 8. We got to this strategic plan by doing a listening and learning effort, right? That allowed me to get around the state of North Carolina into various regions, to various conferences. I was able to attend a conference that was put on and allowed to speak and to listen, and had thousands upon thousands of folks share what they wanted for our public schools. And so that's why I say it's North Carolina's public schools strategic plan, because this is really as much a reflection of what folks shared with me. Shared it with the board. They provided comments. We did with a first draft. We went back out, listened to more folks. They provided additional comments, which allowed us to then put together a second version. So I'm going to wrap up here. That now we have a plan that is a joint plan between the Department of Public Instruction and the State Board of Education, which is exciting. We're having many, many folks say, yes, we want to be part of it, tell us what to do. And this organization, this council, y'all have a critical role to play in this regard. Challenge us, because it will challenge us. I will allow us to get even better as we do this incredible work. I know you've got a full agenda today. I want to thank you for giving me just a moment of your time when there's perhaps another opportunity we can slow down and do some Q&A, if you will. But I don't know that we'll be able to do that this morning. But at least at this point, I want to thank you for, again, the work you have done, are doing, and will do to elevate the academic and character of American Indians and all students, I believe.
Thank you, Superintendent Green. Just a real quick question. I understand you have your regional tour that you're doing. Do you mind sharing just a little bit about that, and how could we as SACE members potentially plug in when you're coming to our area?
Absolutely. So yes, we are doing, so now that we have the plan, we launched it with a very fun, wonderful event in Wake County, but we understood that that one event wasn't going to allow everybody to really understand the plan. So we're doing another statewide tour. The first one, when I was doing my listening and learning, we called it Mo Wants to Know. We're going to call this continuing that same theme even as we go back out. We're going to all 8 regions of the state. Again, the dates and times are on the website. So it was intended to be in the Sand Hills area on Monday. We have rescheduled that. So we'll be in the Sand Hills area, I believe, on October the 27th. Certainly look forward to being in that community. We'll be having school visits. There'll be sort of some community leader type activity during the day, and then there will be an open opportunity in the evening for communities members to come out and visit with us. So I would encourage you, what you can do is certainly find where in your area of the state will be next. We've done 2 regions, the Northeast and the Southeast, so unfortunately, those have passed, but the others, encourage you to share with your communities that will be there, and we can engage. While it's mostly a presentation, I do stay afterwards to listen to what folks have to say as well in the community events, because I always believe it's good to hear what's going on.
Great, thank you. Any other questions? Dr. Locklear, do you mind just sharing those dates out with us just so we can make sure that we can register for those?
Yes, that was part of my updates as well. I will resend them out, but I will also ask SACE members. It is extremely important to share this with your tribal community as well, your councils, and those that have education committees in your tribes. If you could ensure that it gets to them, I send it to them as well, but I think it means more if you are sharing it with your community directly.
Yeah, thank you. Well, Superintendent Green, thank you again for spending time with us today. I look forward to seeing you when you're in Guilford County. So thank you so much. All right, next up, we've got Dr. Olivia Oxendine joining us virtually to give us some State Board of Education updates. Dr. Olivia, you with us?
I am.
Thank you.
I'm here. I'm going to try to make it through this presentation without coughing or anything. So far, that hasn't happened.
Yeah, well, take your time. We definitely understand.
That's kind of increasing, but I think I can make it through. So you're going to benefit from the fact that it'll be a short presentation. I wanted to just piggyback for a minute or two on Superintendent Green's presence with SACE this morning. That means so much to have the leadership come to these meetings, and I will say that he is very sincere in all that he says and all that he is putting forth to do. The strategic plan is huge. It's going to cover several years, and I know that in various ways it will touch the achievement and the success of Indian students. So I really, really, Chair Bell, I'm so happy that you plugged into the fact that he is making these around the state tours. and that all of you will make an effort. If you can't make it, you will make your communities aware of the meeting so that you can be present. And if there's an opportunity to ask questions at those meetings, that you will, or make comments, that you will be there to do so. So that's wonderful. So I'll move on with my presentation. I want to talk about the compulsory attendance law in North Carolina and the recent clarification that came out of the State Board of Education a couple of months ago around a particular aspect of the attendance policy, and it has to do with failing students who pass content. Let's say they pass they do the coursework during the 9 weeks or throughout the semester or throughout the year, but yet they may end up with an F, and the F is the result of excessive absences. So the Department of Public Instruction came up with a solution to that, and I want to talk with you a bit more about it. Now, there's still a little bit of not really refinement to the policy, but clarification around the state regarding this policy. The policy is in place, but across the 100 school districts and probably our charter schools, there needs to be a bit more clarification in terms of, what this actually means on the ground. So I'm not going to go deeply into the policy. I want to give you kind of a broad brush of what it means. So in general statute, you see GS 115C 378 requires all students ages 7 through 16 to attend school on a regular basis. North Carolina State Board of Education policy changes ensure students do not receive a failing grade solely for attendance, but can still face consequences for excessive absences, such as, in some cases, a local school board may have a consequence that requires a student to be detained after school or to go into school suspension for excessive. I don't know whether that's actually, I don't think that's, I don't know that that's the answer, but to improve attendance. But this is what does happen in some school systems. I think it would really be important for you to do a little bit of homework, find out about the attendance consequences and penalties for Indian students, American Indian students who miss a large number of school days. I think it would be. And it might, as I was reading through this policy, I was thinking to myself, I would like to know what, the data on the student attendance for American Indian students in North Carolina. I don't know that we've ever collected that data as a SACE, but it would be good to know, because I know since COVID, student attendance has been a problem regardless of the racial category of students. It's been across the board. So the law also mandates that parents notify schools for reasons of absences with excused absences, typically covering illness and unavoidable causes and documented emergencies. So we'll go to the next frame, Dr. Leslie. So the State Board attendance policy, again, going back to the general statute on compulsory attendance, and that attendance is based on 180 days. That's the instructional calendar year, against which absences are calculated. Local school boards are authorized to establish penalties and consequences for excessive or chronic absenteeism. And then we go into this school year, the SBE has approved a policy that prevents course failure because of excessive absences. On the other hand, a teacher may assign a grade of FF. That is a grade that differentiates between a normal grade course failure. So if it's an FF, then it is a failure as a result of chronic absenteeism. In cases where students have significant excused absences plus a failing grade. Now, that right there is a question that I will raise next month. the point about significant excused absences versus unexcused. So, but an absence is an absence. It doesn't matter whether it's excused. In other words, it is an absence when the student is not in the classroom benefiting from instruction. So we can't argue that point. But I do want a bit more clarification in terms of the FF applying to excused absences and I'm sure unexcused, but I want to know more about the excused portion of that. Excused absences typically cover an illness, religious observances, educational opportunities. Let's say that a family is going to go out of the country for 2 weeks. And if that happens, I would hope that the parents would request that the student not be penalized with an unexcused absence, but an excused absence. And that granting that would rest on that would be the responsibility of the principal. So the parents would go meet in person with the principal or write a letter and make sure that those absences are not punitive. In other words, 2 weeks would not cause the student to have to go into in-school suspension. A trip out of the country, one would immediately think that would certainly be educational in nature. So excessive unexcused absences are those that generally involved, when the situation warrants. Let's say a student is missing school for 10, 11, 12, up to 15 or more days, especially consecutively. And there's no word from the parents or family. The student has just kind of dropped off the radar. Here is where we bring in the school social worker or an intervention team to begin looking into the reasons for the absences. And in some cases, if the chronic absences could lead to some involvement with the court system. But there again, the school social worker working very closely with the principal, the parents, family, or custodians, whoever has a legal custodian of the students, along with the teachers, would be very involved in that level of absence. And we'll go on to the next frame, Dr. Leslie. So these are reasons for an excused absence: an illness, of course, religious observance, educational opportunities, legal obligations. Participation as a witness in a court proceeding is a valid reason for an absence. I don't know that I've ever heard of that happening, but I'm sure it can. A military family, unique circumstances related to the family may be excused with prior approval. And then the next frame, Dr. Leslie.
Those are the only ones that came through, Dr. Oxendine. I'm sorry.
Okay. All right, very good. Do you have any questions? Again, next, during when you convene again, hopefully, I will provide you with some clarifying information around the issues that definitely will come up next month at State Board, because like I say, around the state, the school districts have raised questions around that FF and what that really means. And also another question that I would raise is, are we talking about semester, each 9 weeks, at the end of the semester? When does this really become applicable in terms of applying the FF? My guess is each 9 weeks.
And Chair Bell, I did want to share that the SACE committee from the previous year in the spring did request attendance data for American Indian students be implemented in the upcoming year's report. And I have reached out and requested that data. As soon as I have an update, I will share with you all.
So I'm sorry to interrupt. I do have a question. So for instance, in our district, we have several students who in Infinite Campus now are identified as American Indian, some that are not identified as American Indian, but are on our list for Indian education. Yeah, so they have a 506 form, but so they're identified that way, but they're not listed in Power School. So one of the things our school was doing to make sure we had accurate subgroups is cross-referencing birth certificates to ensure that if a student had American Indian on their birth certificate, they were identified in Power School. So for the attendance data, are we looking at how they're identified on 506 forms? Are we identifying based on Infinite Campus?
So it is going to be my request that we are able to do both. I do want to say this is going to be contingent. We are right now working on an update in Infinite Campus that will allow us to enroll every Title VI student that has a 506 form in a program that allows us to specifically pull their data. Right now, I would say at this moment, if you asked us to pull that data, it would be those in the racial category that identify as American Indian. It would not count those that identify as multiracial. So right now, if that data was pulled, it would only be for students in that racial category. But I know it was a request from SACY and also in my role with Title VI coordinators that we be able to compare data for students enrolled specifically in a Title VI program. I cannot let you know yet what we'll be able to add in the report, but as soon as we have clarity on that with the changes in Infinite Campus, I can surely let you know. But I will make that note that we are asking for that data to be a little bit more disaggregated and differentiated by enrollment in a 506 with a 506 form versus identification solely as a racial category. Is that right? Am I saying that right, Kristen, how you want that disaggregated?
Yes.
Gotcha.
Let me ask a question about, does the 506 form not, in terms of identifying students, Indian students qualifying for services, does it not require a birth certificate as proof of identity on the 506?
This is Candace. It does not if they have an enrollment number of their self, a parent, or a grandparent.
Okay, so let's see. So tell me how someone, and maybe it was you, Candace, I'm not sure who made this statement. There's a requirement that you provide a birth certificate to whoever is the data coordinator or manager. Is that what I heard you say?
So that was me. That was Kristen Oxendine.
Okay.
So because it wasn't a requirement. So for the 506 form, it's not a requirement for a birth certificate. They are required to have an enrollment or a parent or grandparent that are enrolled. But because we are, as a school, we're analyzing our data and wanted accurate data for our American Indian subgroup, and we had several students who were not identified as American Indian in the system, we as a school, so not necessarily a district, but we as a school were asking our Indian education teacher assistant to help pull birth certificates to cross-reference to make sure that if the birth certificate was showing that they were American Indian, that they were also listed in Power School as American Indian. So that when our data was disaggregated by our district and when our subgroup data was pulled, that we had more students who were identified in the correct subgroup.
Okay, all right, thank you. That answers my question. Are there any questions about this attendance policy? Like I say, there will be more clarifying information at the next meeting of the State Board of Education because across the state. Are any of you, those of you working closely in districts, are you hearing any questions coming your way around this new policy, SBE policy on the FF, separate category for based on excessive absences? Have you heard anything in your districts?
Hi, Dr. Oxendine.
No.
This is Angelique Young. In our district, our school social worker does have questions because the original statute did say you could be denied credit for attendance, and now it says you can't deny credit solely for attendance purposes. So there are some questions in the Clinton City Schools District among our school social workers regarding this new policy and how they move forward when it comes to truancy. And so this is, an ongoing conversation. So as more clarification comes down the pike, I'm sure they'll be very appreciative because it kind of puts them in a little, a limbo because of, how do we approach truancy if we can't deny credit based solely on attendance?
Well, the other question that I have, I'm writing down questions as I get emails from around my region, the Sand Hills region, or text messages from educators. Another question is does the the double F, I mean, I'd hate to see an FF on my report card, really. But does that, what kind of penalty in terms of grade point average? Like GPA, how does it affect the GPA? Is it a null? Is it a zero? Or just, how does it impact mathematically on the GPA? And, one would say, I know when I was in the classroom, especially when I was a professor at Pembroke, if a student missed a lot of days, didn't show up for class or didn't show up for a lecture, and that happened habitually, it would indirectly, I mean, you can expect the grade to be affected by the absence. So, to me, there is a correlation between not coming to class or not coming to school and its impact on the academics. But yet, we have some students around the state who can still pass the course and miss a lot of days. So I think that was the reason the staff at DPI came up with the policy recommendation to the state board for this FF situation. Are there, and I'll keep you posted, and so will Dr. Leslie, on clarification around this policy as the state board continues hammering through it. Dr. Leslie, did you say nothing else? No other frames came through?
No, ma'am, those are the only ones.
Oh my goodness.
Dr. Oxenden, I do have one question.
Sure.
As it relates to the educational opportunities, have there been discussions about capping those? I mean, I know of one instance where there were like 19 days because of educational opportunities, and paperwork was submitted. So has there been any conversations about capping educational excused opportunities?
No, and you know what, Dr. Tiffany, that's a good question, but I would imagine that kind of decision and discussion will have to be at the local level, about capping or any kind of specific guardrails around, the penalties, the consequences, so on and so forth, has to happen at the local school board level, because at the SB, at the state level, is, we don't like to meddle, really. And some of the complaints that I'm getting, or concerns that I'm getting, is that the local level, the local school board, superintendent, principals, would like to have pretty much 90% jurisdiction over attendance. Other than, of course, there's a state law that we can't do anything about that, because the compulsory attendance law is in statute. But the fine things, the finites, the particulars, how it's implemented, consequences, penalties, so on and so forth, would have to be hammered out at the local level. Any other questions? I do want to talk with you about another topic that came up at the state board, and I don't understand why the frames didn't come through. Maybe it's because I have COVID, who knows?
Real quick, Dr. Olivia, I do have maybe more of a comment than a question before
Sure.
you move on to the other point. I think about the point you made on the first slide, that they can face consequences for excessive absences, such as detentions and in-school suspensions. It sounded like, that we're penalizing students for not coming to school and taking them out of the classroom by putting them in school or potentially out of school suspension. I think, in one of the things that I'm seeing for our students, and this is more just referrals in general, not just attendance, but our American Indian students have a low referral rate, but they have what we call a high cost rate, meaning that they have a high rate of days of school missed for different penalizations or consequences. So even though there's not a lot of instances of them being sent to the principal, when they are sent, it's the consequences is the highest over all racial categories. and I'd be curious what that looks like in other districts, but I'm thinking about that connection as it relates to attendance. It sounds like there's kind of some leeway on what are the consequences that could be given to students. So just something to think. Yeah.
That's a very good point, because I would be opposed. I mean, I was a principal many years ago, and I would have never penalized a student by placing that student, because that's double jeopardy for the student, because the student's already missed X number of days, missed a lot of instruction. And I mean, it doesn't make sense to say, okay, now you're going to spend 2 more days in ISS, or, oh, we're going to detain you after school for 2 days. No, that's ridiculous. So this is where the SACE really can play an instrumental role in coming up with appropriate and meaningful and productive interventions and productive consequences. I don't know that I would even use the word penalty either. Consequences, and meaning we're responsible for building the very positive habits of responsibility, understanding that to the fullest extent possible, especially as they become older students and they're in their teens, we want them to develop those strong habits of showing up, being punctual, not missing. Regularity is so important. And going to ISS just doesn't suit me at all, or detention doesn't. So put your heads together. You might want to do a little research and find out what happens, what are local school boards doing in terms of consequences or interventions in policy at the local level, and maybe bring some of those ideas forward later on in the year. Just do a little bit of research on that, because that's one of your roles too, is that that you need to study, you need to know what's going on out there in the local districts around you and how that impacts the achievement of our students. Okay, so I don't know what happened to the other frames. Let me just take a minute and talk about what they're about. Okay, yesterday at State Board, the chair of the State Board established a task force on the student school accountability model. The model is based on letter grades A through F, and all of that is also key to different levels of performance, from low performing to, meeting growth, exceeding growth. And so it's a very, very complex system. So for many, many years, as long as I've been on State Board, and perhaps even before, educators around the state have not been all that pleased with the accountability model, because teachers and others will say, well, we're working very hard, we're finally seeing growth, we're even exceeding growth, but yet we're penalized with this low performance status, or it's like a label and a red, the scarlet letter or something like that. So what can we do creatively as a task force to come up with other ways to think about accountability? And so Chair Davis established a task force yesterday, and as far as representatives from the State Board of Education, and there are 3 members of the State Board who will serve on the task force. Other participants will be representatives from the General Assembly. There will be representatives from the local districts. There will be some researchers certainly serving on the task force to look at new ways to think about school and student accountability. And I'm sure that there will be a way to identify community members to serve on the task force. I'm going to suggest to Chair Davis that we have some participation from the American Indian community. It could be maybe a member from SACE to serve on the task force, or it could be another way to think about getting American Indian representation on the task force. So I'll be in touch with you, Chair Bell, and also with Leslie and Vice Chair Moore, to talk about how we can get participation from the Indian community on the task force. I don't know how the duration of the task force, those finite details were not discussed yesterday. Dr. Michael Marr, he is a deputy superintendent and is very much involved. Student accountability, school and student accountability is in his purview. And also Rupen Fafaria, who is the director of the State Board of Education. They will represent the leadership team internally to kind of steer and develop and steer and do the, the roll up your sleeves work with respect to the task force. So officially, it began yesterday with the charge from the Chair Davis on the state board. And the duration, as I said a minute ago, I have no idea. I would say maybe a year to 18 months, and we will, coming forward on a regular basis, the task force will come to the state board with updates. So that's where we are with that initiative. And what I will do is figure out what happened to the other 4 or 5 frames, and I'll do a refresh of this PowerPoint. And Dr. Leslie, I will send it to you in another email.
Thank you, ma'am. And I'll make sure it is in the large presentation that everybody has access to.
Absolutely. And there was another important frame that I thought was with the attendance, and it was suggestions on what school districts and what schools can do to promote better student attendance. So I'll make sure, and those ideas came from Ward County right here in Carthage. So I'll make sure that you get the full presentation. Any questions before I say goodbye? Okay.
I don't.
I'm very proud of the work of Stacey. You matter, and I think you heard that came through in the comments from the superintendent, and you certainly matter to others within VPI. So feel free to reach out to me whenever you have questions, and I wish you the rest of the day a good meeting.
Thank you, Dr. Olivia. Please keep us updated on that task force, and hope you have a speedy recovery.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. So next, we're going to kind of shift gears a little bit. We have Amanda Hobbs, who will be joining us from NCDPI, from the Office of Accountability and Testing, who's attending us virtually. Amanda, welcome. Can you hear us?
I can. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you. We can see your slides as well.
Okay, excellent. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thanks for being here. The floor is all yours.
All right. Well, good morning, council members. As mentioned, my name is Amanda Hobbs, and I've served public school units in the Southeast and the Sandhills for over a decade as the Regional Accountability Coordinator. I've recently moved into a new role with the Analysis and Reporting Team in the Office of Accountability and Testing. And so it's my pleasure to be with you today. I look forward to joining you for a couple of meetings this year as you consider the data regarding American Indian student education. So today, Dr. Leslie has scheduled us for about 20 minutes just for an informal discussion of the school accountability model. The goal this month is for us to have a foundational understanding of the assessments and the measures that are included in the model. The State Board of Education did approve the final accountability data for last school year just this week. And so there are plans for us to review those results for American Indian students at your November 7th meeting. So our current accountability model, and next slide, yes, thank you. Our current accountability model was outlined in general statute in 2017 and submitted to the United States Department of Education as our statewide Every Student Succeeds, or ESSA, state plan. And since that time, there have been some state amendments to address some changes, but the framework of the model remains the same. The legislation and the state plan are linked to this slide if you want to review those documents. And as Dr. Oxendine mentioned, there are considerations of an accountability model redesign, but today we're going to take a look at the current model that we're using in North Carolina so we can fully understand the data that we currently have measuring our students. And so we'll look at the next slide. This chart illustrates the components of our current accountability plan. So we'll spend most of our time together this morning on this slide. There are additional slides with links to resources that are included in your slide deck, and we'll explore those as we have time. So let's look at this chart from our state ESSA plan. On the left side, we see the measures that are included in the accountability model. And those are the measures that do result in the school performance grades that Dr. Oxendine was referencing. So the accountability model also allows for the meaningful differentiation of schools for federal identifications. You may have heard of Comprehensive Support and Improvement Schools, or CSI. We also have Targeted Support and Improvement Schools, or TSI. And those designations are provided as part of the federal legislation to provide additional support to schools that have those needs. The long-term goals that you see information listed there on the right, those are based on certain measures to facilitate the exit of schools from those identifications. So our focus today is just going to be on the left side, where we see the accountability model. So on the far left side, we see the measures for elementary and middle schools, and these include end of grade tests, often referred to as EOGs, in reading and math, as shown in that purple box. Now, these tests are administered to students in grades 3 through 8 during the last 10 days of the school year. They measure the mastery of grade level content standards that have been adopted by the State Board of Education. So we'll look at the details of those assessments in a moment. Some of the students that are in middle grades are accelerated in math instruction, and they take the NC Math 1 high school course. So if a student takes the NC Math 1 in grade 8 or before, that assessment is going to count as the grade 8 math assessment. So we don't give them two different tests in that grade 8 year. And then students in grades 5 and 8 also take the science EOG at the end of the school year, as shown in that orange box. So looking at the next measure, the students in grades K through 13 who are identified as English learners, sometimes commonly referred to in our culture as English as a second language, they take the access test in late winter. And that assessment measures their progress in mastering the English development standards. Using that assessment, we determine if the students are on pace to master academic English language. And we do that by 4 different communication domains: speaking, writing, reading, and listening. And so that measure is called the English Learner Progress, which is represented by that red box. Now, each of these measures is included only if there are at least 30 data points. So if a school does not have at least 30 students with an English Learner Progress measure, that indicator is not included for that school or that group of students. Performance on the assessments that are shown in those first 3 boxes is represented as 80% of the school performance grade. So the last box for elementary and middle is that green growth box. So our state works with SAS Analytics to evaluate student growth and produce a value-added school growth measure. The model is a comparative model calculated each year, which means that each student is compared to other students across the state with the same testing history. A simplistic view of the model would be this: if a student performs about the same as other students with the same testing history across the state, the growth measure is 0. If a student performs better than other students with the same testing history, then we think that something special has happened during that 1 year of instruction and learning, and so the student would have a positive growth measure. If the student does not perform as well as students across the state with the same testing history, the student would have a negative number for the growth measure. And then that growth measure is averaged and converted to a 100-point scale, and that number is represented as 20% of the school performance grade. So I'm going to pause there for just a second. I know that was a lot, especially if you are a stakeholder that doesn't work with this all the time. Are there any questions about the elementary piece?
Chair Bill, I have a question. Amanda, this is Leslie, and in the spring, Stacey made a mention about disaggregating Math 1 scores for 8th graders versus Math 1 for 9th graders. But if I'm hearing you correctly, the way that our data is shown in the SACE report, those Math 1 scores for 8th graders is combined in the grade 8 maths data that we have, correct?
So, Dr. Leslie, I would need to look back and see. So we implemented this a couple of years ago to try to eliminate what we call double testing of those students who are in the accelerated math. And so we report that out in different ways for different purposes. So I can definitely take a look at your report and clarify exactly which way we're calculating that for the purpose of the report.
Thank you. And I think when we meet, I think we're going to make the request to have that Math 1 8th grade data pulled out. That was the request, but I don't think we clarified it previously, but I'll touch base with you on that. Thank you, Amanda.
Absolutely. Thank you for bringing that up. It does make math a little confusing, but it's good for children because they're not sitting in front of a test every day, but it does make it a little bit. And that's going to kind of lead us into the high school portion, but I'm going to pause another moment in case anybody else has a question about.
So this is Kristen Oxendine. I don't have a question, but in my middle school, I just want to make sure I'm understanding correctly. So in my middle school, we receive at the end of the year, we have the proficiency and the growth of the students that are in Math 1, and we have the proficiency and the growth of the students that are in 8th grade math. But our math score is the combination of those two things. So we don't get a separate, we don't get to count Math 1 as one thing and then grade 8 math as a separate thing. They are combined together to form our math score. And then we have one math score, one reading score, and then one science score, which would just be 8th grade science.
Yes, that's correct. And if you want to jump to the next slide for just a second. So what you're referencing is you're going to get a school performance grade for your entire school. And then based on the way that the legislation is written, you will get a school performance grade for reading and then a school performance grade for math. You actually don't get a separate grade for science. Science factors into the overall grade, but there's not a separate grade that would come out. So as you look at the reports on the state website that are public, you would see for elementary schools or any school that has elementary grades that there is that separate reading and math score. And then also, I think of special interest to this team is going to be that in addition, if there are at least 30 students with one of these measures, we also calculate a separate school performance grade for that group of students. So the American Indian students at each school, where there are at least 30 of them or a measure for them, would also be reported out as a separate grade. Okay, so if we'll pop back to the graphic just a moment, we'll touch on high school. So schools with high school grade levels are going to have the indicators that are in that second column. And so you'll see that we're looking at English 2 and NC Math end of course, or EOC assessments. And those are administered during the last 5 days for semester-long courses and then the last 10 days for year-long courses. Students will take those tests when they're actually enrolled in that course, so at the completion of the course instruction. So as we mentioned, we use NC Math 1 in middle school if the student takes grade 9, if the student takes NC Math 1 in middle school. And so for those students, when they get to high school, since we've already kind of used that NC Math 1 measure, we're going to use the NC Math 3 test for that particular group of students. And then for all of the other students who take NC Math 1 in grade 9 or later, we're going to use the NC Math 1 score for them. So the high school is going to be that blend of math assessments as well. So we'll note that the growth measure for high school only includes English 2 and math. Biology is not included in our current model design for growth. So the graduation rate was also mentioned by our state superintendent this morning and is an important metric for us. It's a 4-year adjusted cohort graduation rate. So a cohort is a group of students who begin as first-time 9th graders in a defined school year, and then they'll graduate with a regular high school diploma in 4 years or less. The cohort is adjusted, if you will, by adding students who transfer in and subtracting students who transfer out. Also students who may immigrate to another country during the years that are covered by that rate. So the adjusted cohort graduation rates measure the percent of students in a 9th grade cohort that graduate with a regular high school diploma by the expected year. A 5-year graduation rate is calculated and reported for North Carolina, but the 5-year rate is not part of that current accountability model. English learners in high school grades also participate in the Access Assessment and have an English learner's progress measure. Students taking biology will also take an EOC at the conclusion of the course. Students in grade 11 take the ACT assessment, and we use the score identified as the University of North Carolina admissions score. In recent years, that score has been 19. The score for students applying for college entry next fall is 17. So we're in a transition with that score. Students in high school who participate in career and technical education, sometimes referred to as CTE, and complete a course concentration, so they have several courses or more than one course in the same pathway, they will participate in the ACT Work Keys assessment. Work Keys is a workplace readiness assessment. Individuals can receive a certificate with a score level of bronze, silver, gold, or platinum. Students who achieve a level of silver, gold, or platinum are considered proficient for our accountability calculations. So you can look at the ACT data for a current year. You can also look at Work Keys data for a specific year. What's included in the accountability model is the percent of students in grade 12 who have a proficient score on either assessment or both. So the final indicator for high schools is called Math Course Rigor, and this is students who take and pass the Math 3 course by the end of their 12th grade. Participation in the assessments is important. If a low number of students participate in the assessments, we don't know if the students who took the assessment are representative of the learning across the whole group. So there are action steps that are needed when less than 95% of the eligible students participate in the assessment. And I'll pause there to see if there are questions about high school.
And I will just share with the group, this comes into play, some of these assessments, when we have some of our districts that have a low number of American Indian students taking these EOC exams. It's why in our SACE report, you will see that we are not able to report that data because there's a low number of students taking those exams for that particular year.
I just want to make sure I got it right. You said Math Course Rigor was students who take and pass Math 3 by the end of 12th grade?
Yes, that's correct.
That pass the course or pass the test?
The course. Okay, so I think we've touched on the next slide, so we can move on. What I've included for you here, and I think we're drawing toward the end of our time, but our test specifications. So I'll pull up, actually, I'm not sharing my screen. So I guess I will just share with you that if you click on, yes, maybe it'll take you there. Thank you. So if you'll click on reading at grades 3 through 8, perfect. Thank you so much. And then again on this link here. And I included the links instead of embedding the actual charts because as information changes over time, it can be helpful to know where the source is located. So what you'll find in these documents, if you're looking for additional information about a specific test, is you'll find out when the test was created based on the standards that were adopted. All of our assessments are created by North Carolina educators. This is the EOGs and EOCs. And so there's a discussion of the process that's used for that. And then if you scroll down, it will show the prioritization of standards, so which academic standards are addressed on the assessment and measured, as well as the percent range of what's addressed. And then something that's kind of helpful in understanding the assessments, I think, it will show you which standards are assessed on each of the grade spans, but also it will show you what they call cognitive rigor. So we are using web-based depth of knowledge. And so if you scroll down, it'll show the number of items. For the reading test, it'll show you the number of selections that the student would be utilizing, and then it'll show you the total number of items. The field test items are the items that we're trying out for future iterations. So the students take those, they're embedded within the test, so they don't know which ones are field test items, but they're not items that we're going to count for the student just yet because we need to collect additional information on it. And as you scroll down, you'll see the test cycle. So it tells you when we give the test. They are all administered online unless there's a student with a disabling condition that prevents access to the test. And then you'll see that there are some additional resources. So there are release tests for each of the assessments that we give that will show you the types of items that are on the test and give you a sense of how the test is formatted for the students. So that would be the test specifications that are referenced. And there's one of these documents on the page for each of the assessments. So reading, math, science, as well as the high school subjects, to give you a little bit of a better understanding of those if you want. And then jumping back to our slides, we also have NC Check-ins 2.0. I believe that you may have heard presentations in prior years about that. We're not going to go to those specifications at this time, but those are optional assessments that can be utilized throughout the school year by schools to help assess how students are progressing in the standards. And then the NC Extend 1 test specifications, we're not going to look at that either right now, but that particular assessment is the alternative assessment that is for our students with the most significant cognitive disabilities. So just looking at the other slides that are coming up here, the release tests, as I mentioned, are available. So if you want to get a better idea of a specific grade band, you can look at those. And then the next slide. These are achievement level descriptors. I see the display is showing moved down just a touch, but the science standards, as you may be aware, it's okay. Just letting you know what that's saying. The science standards, as you know, were just adopted a couple of years ago. And so last year was the first year that we gave those science assessments. And so it will show you the scale scores for each of the proficiency levels, if that's something that you want to look at. And that'll give you an idea if a student scores a certain achievement level, what does that mean about their mastery of the content? Okay, next slide. And so here are linked the achievement level descriptors for each of those. Okay, the next slide. And that brings us to other questions and answers. I'm not sure if we have time for that, Dr. Leslie, but certainly glad to take any questions or suggestions for things that you want us to bring back when we have your data for next month.
Any questions? Anybody? Amanda, no questions here. Just wanted to make a comment. Thanks for sharing this with us today. I understand that we're going to be looking at some of the unpacking the K-12 science standards, so that's definitely helpful to have this context for later in our meeting. So we look forward to having you back in November.
Okay, thanks so much.
All right, thank you. Have a good day.
You too.
And Chair Bell, I just wanted to share with the committee how I would suggest you utilize this presentation. A lot of you work with community members, parents, and they are not really sure exactly how their students are being assessed, what they're being assessed on, and I get asked a lot of questions about, well, can I see an example of the test? We know in our community, a lot of our children are being raised by grandparents or external family members. Please help them to understand that there are supplemental resources. I would even push that so far as to say, if you have parent committee meetings or the opportunity to be in the community to print these out, lead specific sessions about these exams if you have a large population of elementary students or whatever it may be, because what I found is that sometimes our community is just not as informed on what their students are being assessed on. They just know that they are taking an EOG or they're taking an EOC, but clearly there's the data online, but we know for our communities, just because it's online doesn't mean it's accessible. So if you can help me make this accessible to our families, that would be great. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Leslie. That's helpful. All right, next on our agenda, we've got a presentation on NC College Connect from Sneha Coltrane from DPI's Advanced Learning and Gifted Education. Welcome, Dr. Coltrane. Thank you for being here. If you're talking, we can't hear you.
Okay, there we go.
There we go.
There we go.
Hi,
And
good
then
morning.
I just shared my screen. Can you see that?
We cannot, we're working on it. Give us just a moment.
Okay, great. Great. Or I can send these quickly to Leslie if that's helpful.
I think we got it.
Okay, wonderful.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, you good? All right. We're good. Feel free to go ahead.
Excellent. Great. So today, hello, SACY Board. I have not been here in a little bit, so it's super great to see each of you and to be here, and to thank you so much for this opportunity to review with you a really amazing new program that we have been developing with our partners from across the state. And so it's a new program called North Carolina College Connect. And the program is meant to simplify admissions for our students. And our hope is that students will be able to see themselves as college ready as quickly as possible. So that way, if they can then go through the process with guaranteed admissions. So with our partners in the UNC system schools, as well as North Carolina independent colleges and universities and the community college system, we have launched this program. So it's a program where if students meet certain requirements, they will have already offers of admission into the colleges. They will no longer have to do the traditional application for certain colleges, and they will be admitted. And so a student just needs to claim their spot and accept their offer, and then eventually decide to enroll and commit to a school of their choice based on all of their personal and family needs. So here you have all of the institutions that are participating. And I know it's hard to believe. So many people say, is this real? Can this be real? And it is real. So students, some students were pulled in June and July. So they've already received letters in the mail. Other students we are pulling this week, and they will go into their College for North Carolina portal where they can see if they are eligible. And the great news about this is not just this year that we have students who are being accepted into all of these colleges with the requirements, but to me, the bigger impact will be next year when we can work with your students. Counselors can work with them. You all can work with them in your community and help students and families know that if you meet this benchmark, you will get access to college. Because for so many of our students and our families, especially in underserved communities like our SACY community, our students don't necessarily see themselves as college going. And what we want to show them is, look, if you can meet these requirements, you're in. And it doesn't necessarily matter how many other activities you did or, what essay you write. With your high school transcript, you're in. So what are those requirements? So a student must have a 2.8 weighted GPA and then meet course requirements. The course requirements are basically graduation requirements with one additional key course, which is a 4th level math course. So that is a course building on Math 3. So that is Math 4 or another course that builds on Math 3. So if those students meet graduation requirements, have a 4th level math course, and have a 2.8 weighted GPA, they will be accepted into majority of these colleges on this screen. A few of the colleges have additional GPA requirements. But for the most part, all of these colleges, they will have admissions already offered to them without essays, without letters of recommendation, without the traditional pathway. So before I go on, are there any questions or comments before I go on to more specifics?
Dr. Coltrane, one question I have that you might be getting to is I'm curious. I know you said that you're sending out letters to students and they'll get something in their portal. I am curious about, are there other ways that we might be able to plug in to also help share this information that y'all are already doing? So if you're already going to share that, feel free to answer that then. But that's one thing that I'm thinking about. How can we, as SACY members, not just share verbally, but are there ways that y'all are doing that we could plug into to help with
Absolutely.
that?
So why don't we hold that one till the end of I just have a few more slides to talk about how we can partner, if that's good.
That's great. Thank you.
Great. And so some students did receive a letter, and then we are updating, and it's all in the portals because some addresses weren't accurate, and then this summer some of the data wasn't as good as we needed them. So what we're doing is we want to tell students to go to their CFNC portal, and they can go down to College Connect, and they can see all of the colleges that they have direct admissions to. And so it would look like this. If they go to nccollegeconnect.org, they can access their portal. They need to sign in using the appropriate, the same names that they have in Infinite Campus, because that's how we got their names. And so we want to make sure that's there, and then they're able to see their letters and fill out a very simple form, 5, 6, 7 questions. And then they're admitted, and then the college will work with them to apply to other specific program areas in the college or special scholarships, etc. The good news is that all of the Promise colleges are part of this, and so I think that is an incredible opportunity for our students who qualify, for them to know, hey, I'm already admitted and I only need this finite amount of money to do this, can be super helpful in helping them think through if they're able to access college. There are college application fees in this. However, during college application week, October 20th through the 26th, most of these schools do have waivers, and then most of them do accept the traditional waivers for application fees as well. So what we also working with our schools on is making sure they understand college application week, making sure that if they choose or didn't qualify or choose not to go down this pathway, this fast track option, that they can still apply in a traditional manner to all of these colleges, because a lot of them would love to have students come learn with them. So that is incredibly important as well. So we have had a lot of partners with this work, the independent colleges, the UNC system, Gear Up, et cetera. All of these people have really come together for this incredible opportunity that really is going to change the trajectory of North Carolina students, we feel like. Now, we do want to say that if a student doesn't graduate or drops in their GPA, doesn't meet different safety requirements, their offers will be rescinded, which is typical for after any college acceptance. So there's nothing new there, but it is important that we want to tell our kids that, hey, just because you're admitted doesn't mean you just get to not show up and not do the work anymore. So that's something we want to make sure we share. And this is the first year, and so we of course are getting lots of questions, but we're looking forward to really think through with you all as well, what more can we do to support? And I love the question of how you all can also share what is happening with that. So if you go to this QR code, and I will send these slides to Dr. Locklear so she can share them with you all. But on the cfnc.org's website, where you can help us with is there is a one-pager. There's also different presentations, but that one-pager, I think, is the most important to give to families, to give to students, to give to tribal leaders so people understand that there is this opportunity. And if students are not sure how to access their portal, they can go to their school counselor, their help desk also at CFNC, who can help them make sure that they access. And the high schools will be getting next week the list of students that were eligible. So they can check with their counselors as well. So going to your question, I mean, I do think that one way is definitely sharing the information and helping everybody better understand this program. I think that is super, super important for this. And that one pager that I will send to Tiffany as well as this presentation can really be a good place to start.
I have one question.
Yes,
On the
ma'am.
requirement for the math course after Math 3, they have to have completed it their 11th grade year?
No, ma'am, they can be enrolled in it this year.
Okay.
So as long as they're enrolled. Now, for this year, the data has already been pulled, but we did take into account a student's schedule for this year. Now, of course, they will have to finish that course, but that was considered.
Any other questions?
It's truly incredibly exciting. And so whatever I can do to help you inform your communities and your, circles of support, I'm happy to provide to help.
Thank you, Dr. Coltrane. I did have one other question in thinking about like recruitment efforts. If we have an event or a program where a lot of our seniors might be coming through, I know a lot of our Title VI Indian education programs have like college and career nights. I'm wondering, in terms of having someone representative there to share about this program, would a school counselor be the best one for us to reach out to? Or
Yeah, I
Okay.
think a school counselor is probably the best person, or the director of counseling or student services in a district could be really helpful as well.
Perfect. Thank you. Any other
And
questions?
if there are any statewide meetings for that, I'm happy, or my team can definitely also try to be there. But local events, we think, local contacts are your best bet.
Counselors. Okay, great. Thank you.
You're
Anyone
so
else?
welcome.
Well, thank you so much for sharing about this great program. We look forward to seeing how our American Indian students, and really all students, get to get supported and get into higher education programs through this program. So thank you for your work and for your presentation today.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
All right. Have a good day. All right. Next, we have, we're switching gears from academics to something that greatly impacts our academics, which would be our mental health. We've got the Alicia Freeman here to talk about mental health first aid. So, Alicia, we've got your presentation. If you don't mind just hitting the green button on your mic so that those attending virtually can attend. All right. All yours. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. And I did feel like the past presentation still connects greatly since we're located in the UNC School of Social Work. And I'm also currently secretly working on a proposal to hopefully be able to support all colleges and universities across North Carolina with mental health first aid. So I want to tell y'all about this is more of a special project, and a community-specific course is what Youth Mental Health First Aid, or the National Council, calls this. So we have not been providing these yet. We've provided one, but this is something that I'm interested in, and we have students like in med school and also in other schools on campus that are interested in supporting these efforts. Next slide, please. So to start with, I'm just overviewing some of the things that we already know. I know you all already know these things, but our Native students face higher rates of discrimination and than any other ethnic group, and this has a major impact on their self-worth and worldview. As a people, we have been resilient against historical and generational trauma. And so this is just another way for us to add to that and try to reduce some barriers around access and helping folks be more culturally responsive and with the care or support that they offer our students. And then, of course, like the rural locations that many of our students grow up in, or our tribal territories across North Carolina, that can also cause lack of access. And we also know that we have higher rates of violence and victimization in our communities. So part of this is to really address the mental and emotional things that may show up with our youth. Next slide. So one other thing that I'm really passionate about, and that I help with the UNC Suicide Prevention Institute, is suicide rates among Native Americans, and specifically our youth population, because we have the highest rate in our youth population, and when it comes to suicide rates, and it is the second leading cause of death, and the first cause being like accidents or extreme accidents. So again, that could be a result of riskier behaviors. So really just trying to address a lot of these barriers and health disparities that we see in our youth related to mental health and emotional health. So what is mental health first aid? It's a training course that was developed by the National Council for Mental Wellbeing. It originated in Australia. So it's been adopted by more than 25 countries across the globe. But in the United States, it started with the National Council and the states of Maryland and Missouri. And so it is an evidence-based course. They continue to have evaluations and different research projects. Pretty soon, I'm hoping to have a publication about what we've done on campus so far. But that they continue to do like pre and post test data so that we can see, like, is this program helping and is it doing what we say it's doing? So in the training, the youth mental health first aid is for adults who would be supporting youth. And then I'll kind of trickle down the different levels or different community-specific courses that are available. But folks learn in these courses how to recognize those risk factors, and so also the protective factors that can counter those, noticing those warning signs within our youth. Because, you know, sometimes our youth, they're going to get attitude and they're not going to want to be around their parents. And that's pretty common, but it's not common or it's not as typical for them or as healthy for them to be withdrawing from friends and withdrawing from social activities or things they used to enjoy and not replacing that with like a new venture. So it talks about those different things as well as information around age of onset with anxiety, depression, how trauma impacts our mental and emotional health and well-being, and then what psychosis or substance use, substance abuse type of symptoms can look like. And it gives this 5-step action plan to address these concerns. So it's meant to be like a standard first aid, a standard CPR course, but focused on mental health challenges. So it uses, like CPR would use the ABCs and airway, breathing, compression. It uses that 5-step, which is ALGE is the acronym for that. Next slide, please. And this slide just kind of helps us understand what mental health first aid is and how it helps. So it's really meant to be preventative and early intervention. It can, of course, be combined with treatment because it's all about supporting people non-judgmentally, but it is really best if it is early intervention and we get folks to help. The sooner the better. That reduces secondary harm. So these are the programs that are available. So I know I started the title of this about tribal and indigenous people, but that's what I'm going to focus on at the end because that's what's specific to this group. But I did want y'all to kind of understand, I guess, the structure and what is available holistically. So the adult course is for folks over 18 who would be supporting other adults. And we're running both adult and youth trainings currently. And Blue Cross Blue Shield tribal liaisons are going to do just the standard youth training virtually and market it to tribal communities in December. So that could kind of be like this is an intro, but it's not actually the tribal communities and indigenous peoples module. So the adult one has some of these community-specific courses under it. So right now we generally teach just the standard course, and we have not expanded too much to the community-specific courses. We are serving those communities, like we have a partnership with Whole Community Connections, where we're serving rural communities and tribal communities, but we have not done the community-specific courses yet. But we do have some instructors trained in the community-specific ones. Specifically, I'm trained in rural communities, higher education, and the tribal communities. So specifically to y'all, we would be focused more on the youth mental health first aid, and that is for adults who are supporting youth ages 12 to 17. And that is the curriculum that has the community-specific course for tribal communities and indigenous peoples. So sometimes they'll use the acronym TCIP. They love to throw acronyms in somewhere, make us feel smart, I guess. And another thing that you all may be interested in, but I am not currently the person who would be leading that, but I can definitely connect you to that office, is teen mental health first aid. But I will say, if we were trying to implement this with, like, say, NICNAO or some of our teen organizations or groups that are not necessarily at a school, we may be able to attach that to, like, a tribal communities plan. Right now, I'm kind of on a little island in the School of Social Work, specifically focused on campus and campus partnerships. However, and this may not make sense because it doesn't quite always connect for me, so if y'all have questions, let me know. But in the Behavioral Health Springboard, which is also in the School of Social Work, they are currently providing teen mental health first aid to schools and youth serving organizations across North Carolina. So we may be able to get folks in there, and that's already funded by the division and Department of Health and Human Services. And that teen model is for peers in high school age, so grades 9 through 12, ages 14 through 18, and it trains them how to notice those signs and then connect to that trusted adult that is trained in youth mental health first aid. So there's kind of an implementation process to the teen. You would want to start with youth because you got to have at least, I think it's 10% of staff that'll be working with these youth trained in the youth mental health first aid. So it kind of takes a while to set up, but just making sure that the adults that are supporting that group of youth, whether it's a school or youth serving organization, that we have at least 10% of them trained in youth mental health first aid, and then we could look at supporting the peer-to-peer between the teens. This is an overview of just the standard youth curriculum, and then I'll move into specifics around the tribal communities module. So really it just starts to describe what is youth mental health first aid. Like I just mentioned to y'all, it's meant to be standard, like a first aid course. It doesn't teach you to be a therapist. It's not a support group or any of those things. It just teaches us like the skills to connect them to the appropriate professional help. Recognizing the signs and symptoms between like a crisis and a non-crisis situation, because sometimes we might overreact, but then sometimes we might underreact when we hear signs around suicide and don't necessarily notice that it could be a sign. So we'll talk about trauma and how those traumatic experiences impact youth and that adolescent development, and also resilience, which I think is so important in our community, because many of the things that we see in the data it's not a true indication of our strength and resilience. So you'll learn about algae and how to apply that action plan in non-crisis and crisis situations. And then we'll talk about self-care, because we always kind of push self-care and talk about that as like just being so important to care for others. So now I'll get into the specifics around the tribal communities and indigenous people. This, again, they'll call it a CSC, or a community-specific course. And so, again, these are just some statistics that the National Council shares just around national data related to Native people. And this, one thing that I am interested in, because this module was developed with community members and tribes out west, I'm specifically interested in like the data or how this applies to our tribal communities. And I do have close contacts with the National Council and the ability to work with their research and data team too, if that's something that we would all, want to join efforts on. So, I mean, you all can see some of the statistics, but typically, there's going to be a mistrust of healthcare, and rightfully so. And then there's also stigma in our communities. And there's also that you've had a bad experience before, or you got treated in a way, or, judgment. And so that kind of deters folks from serious medical help, even when it's needed. And that Native youth or Indigenous youth are going to be more likely to have those adverse childhood experiences, so then they're going to be more likely to have those mental and emotional needs that we would want to support. Some more of the barriers, and I mentioned some of these already, but perhaps they've had a negative experience with a health professional or healthcare setting, therapist or mental health professional, stigma about mental health challenges and the lack of access and availability, and even the financial burden. So I do try to encourage our college students, like when you're in college and your student fees are paying for this stuff, access it and just kind of at least learn the system. If it's not a good fit, then we can navigate somewhere else. these are just some of the unique needs to tribal communities, which I know you all are experts on these communities, so I'm not telling you anything new here. That it's important that we support our Indigenous youth with mental health challenges, and that we understand these impacts of historical trauma and colonization, and kind of how that can show up in self-hatred and just ways that society can be telling our youth that they're not who they are and not to be proud of who they are. These are some of the current partners that I've mentioned. So like I said, we have the Blue Cross Blue Shield Healthy Blue tribal team that is offering, they will be sponsoring the virtual youth mental health first aid in December, and I can share that flyer with with you all as well. And so they literally just got a flyer done, so we can start pushing that out to some of the folks who might want to take that virtually. Again, that'll be the standard youth mental health first aid. It is like a blended model, so a lot of people haven't talked about timing yet. So the virtual one, there's about, they estimate 2 hours of pre-work online, but it's truly probably more like an hour of pre-work, and then there's the live session on Zoom, and then there's a post-evaluation, and folks get their certificate. And the certificates are valued, they have continuing education credits. They're valued at about like $150, $175 per person, but they last for 3 years. With Whole Community Connections, that's who we're currently working with. We got a training in Robeson County on Monday but we'll actually be doing adult mental health first aid. We'll have RHCC, it's Robeson Health, anywho. And some of the tribal administrators will be in that one too. We have a few Native instructors, Stephanie Chavis, Courtney Richardson, Jessica Lambert Ward, Quay Lynch. So we have some folks we can pull from. Also, I forgot about my community, April Patrick and Ashley Longboy. So we have some folks that we've already started with to get trained in youth mental health first aid specifically. We just got to expand and add on that tribal communities module. And the UNC Suicide Prevention Institute, they continue to provide us support and want to focus on rural and tribal communities. This is from the one tribal communities course that we did host. We were able to host that in Chapel Hill. So you'll see a few folks from the American Indian Center. We hosted it in collaboration with them. And so some of the pictures you see here are just some of the additions. Essentially, the community-specific courses, they provide the same content as the standard course, but then there's some additions around data, research, and activities that are specific to that community. So the scenarios we use will be specific, and they even offer some where you can fill it in yourself to make it more specific to your community. The picture you see there is where one of the activities is that you pair with a group and you draw a healthy youth in your community. So you kind of see a world there and then community around it, a little caution cone for safety, emotional health. So it's just really interesting what folks came up with. And that was in February of this year. And this is just a little bit about marketing and recruitment. So how to set up a training is simply just right now identify a host organization. So whoever wants to host the training, whether they want to do that virtually or in person. So for example, Blue Cross Blue Shield has decided to do virtual. They identified a training date. The training location is on Zoom. If it's in person, of course, we discuss meals because the training does take at least 1 full day or 2 kind of half days. So we can do it in 1 6-hour block or 2 3-hour blocks. And with the 2, we've done them like back-to-back days, or we've done them like consecutive weeks. But we usually don't go beyond that time just because we'll start to lose some participation. And once we've identified and kind of set up the training, we start recruiting participants together and folks get certified. And that's it. So whatever questions you all have, I know it's a lot of information and it's kind of complicated how they have everything all set up. I think I forgot to mention the continuing education credits are 7.5 for the adult and 6.5 contact hours for the youth.
Hello, I'm Kristen Oxendine. I feel like I've said that so many times today. But I have a quick question. So are there a number of participants that you need to have so that you'll be able to come?
Yeah, so 5 is the minimum, but and these are the National Council standards. It's 5 is the minimum for a training and 30 is the maximum. If you have over 15, they require you to have 2 instructors, but I have found that best practice is to always have 2 instructors. But if it is ever the case, we only have 1 instructor, then we try to also have a support person in the room who may not be teaching the course, but can provide any support to participants throughout.
I have a question. So my staff and I signed up for the online on December 8th. What do I need to do to prep? And there will be 8 of us.
So they will essentially get an email, probably, I don't know how soon I'll send it. Typically we send it like 2 weeks in advance, but I know that me and Jalen and Blue Cross, we're talking all the time, so we might go ahead and just get people in early. But you'll get an email saying that you've been invited to Mental Health First Aid Connect, which is the learning management system, and then that's where you do the 2 hours of pre-work.
Okay. And that pre-work will happen before that date?
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. Because
Yeah.
I want to do
That's
it together with my staff, so they're not just doing it on their own. So would
Yeah.
that be something you would recommend I do?
So doing it together, y'all would all still have to kind of do it on your own accounts.
Okay.
Yeah, for it to register in the system, that's kind of how they track the certificate.
Okay.
So that is a good point.
Okay. So make sure everyone has their own personal laptop
Yeah,
to do
open up
Yeah.
and that they're clicking through. Even if y'all want to listen to just one speaker and turn
Okay.
everybody's speaker off, that everybody's kind of clicking through on their own.
So it's kind of
pace.
like the same experience of doing it all together.
That's a good point. I'm glad you brought that up because I think that's something that tribal communities and rural communities would benefit from, because there are some times where we run into the issue where people couldn't access the pre-work, or and if y'all have a time together, you can always contact me if you have some trouble.
Alicia, I have a question. In your experience, is this better, not the word better, what, in terms of how we are Indigenous people, would you recommend the online or the in-person? Because I think it would be great if DPI and the Office of Indian Ed offered this to Title VI programs and Title VI staff. But I know I get a lot of feedback from the field that we would rather be in person. A lot of people would rather be in person, but I would need to, of course, calculate travel into costs if we are hosting it. What is your recommendation in terms of working with tribal communities and how it's best facilitated?
Yes, thank you for that question. And I've had the same experience that most of the time folks do want to be in person, and that is the better practice with our communities. I kind of see the virtual, and I told Blue Cross Blue Shield's tribal team this as well, but I see the virtual as an option for some of those folks who, may already be really adept with technology and not able to make the in-person. But also, I don't think they offer the tribal specific online. So that's part of it too, is that most of the community specific modules are only available in person. But they are making some of them available virtually, but I don't see that happening with the tribal communities one, or at least not as soon. Because I agree that, we are folks who like to see and touch and, engage our senses in that learning in a way that kind of is offered more in person. It's just not the same to try to draw a healthy youth on a whiteboard online than drawing it together on paper with a whole group.
Dr. Leslie, if SACY wanted to offer this, what would be the steps? I would imagine we'd need to vote on it, right?
Yeah, I would say if SACY decided to be the host in partnership with DPI's Office of Indian Ed, first of all, you would all need to vote and decide that you're going to, and then we could decide, you and I could work together to figure out budgetary, can we cover this? It is my initial assumption to say yes. Initially in partnership, I think it would be feasible, but we could then clarify that budget, what that would look like, and then decide on a date. And of course, we at DPI have a location. That wouldn't be an issue. And we have systems for getting catering and food and all of that, but it would be SACY's decision on whether or not they wanted to offer that.
Okay. So yeah, let's maybe you and I connect and talk about budget and then present it at a November meeting if it's ready in that time. Okay. Any other questions?
I was just going to say, and feel free to circle back even if you have some things that y'all can't cover, because we may have folks who want to support, like the American Indian Center or like the Suicide Prevention Institute.
Okay. And so if we're interested, we just can email you with dates, times, that sort of thing. Okay.
Yep, I'll send. So I'm gonna send Leslie. What do I need to send you? I'll send you the request form. So essentially, that's what you'll do to just start the process of scheduling the training.
And I actually have the Blue Cross and Blue Shield. I got their email yesterday, so I have that information I can share out. But if SACY's interested in their own, I will follow up with you after, I think our meeting is November 7th or the 6th. I will follow up soon after that to let you know whether or not SACY has decided to host an in-person training, which would likely be in the spring. Yeah.
Okay, that'd be great.
So I just have one question for Leslie, because I was just about to shoot off an email. Do I need to wait until...
And this is just my initial thinking. If we host, we, as in SACY and DPI, OIE, if we hosted it, the target audience would be Title VI program coordinators, directors, YDS, I'm sorry. So it would be targeted specifically to those that work specific with our students. But if you're thinking about district-wide, that would be a separate thing. But our target audience, I'm thinking, would be Title VI, YDS, coordinators, directors, those that directly touch American Indian students. And we would do the specific tribal and indigenous training with Alicia. But if you're thinking just my district, it may be outside of that. We may even consider, if we don't get to the 30 Indian parent committees, but I really think we would get to the 30 with just Title VI. And for some of our districts that have youth development specialists, we may get to that 30. But if you're thinking outside of that,
I was thinking our Indian education. I was thinking our Indian education program. But even if we couldn't train everybody, we could at least have a train-the-trainer model so that we get the majority of our folks in, so they can take back and share some things.
So that's another thing, is they have like levels of training. So the training that I've been discussing so far is what they would consider their standard community training. The train the trainer would be their instructor training, is what they call it. And so that is taught specifically by instructors that are certified with the National Council. We don't currently have any instructors on our team that can teach the train the trainer, but I can help set that up. And that's what I've been doing so far, is trying to get us some folks. In Robeson County, we've got Kay Freeman and Linda Oxendine and Ruby Locklear, and we've done a few down there. But if we wanted to build capacity in terms of training instructors, that would be another fee, because that would go directly to the National Council. We wouldn't necessarily receive that.
So, Kristen, I would say if you'll give us till November and let us decide if SACY's going to move forward, and then after that, if we're not able to with SACY and DPI, then I think it would be great that if individual Title VI programs or districts hosted it.
So for me, what would you recommend the same thing?
What was the date? December
8th.
Alicia, what would you recommend? Because Candace has quite a few staff that would pull out of that December meeting if we decided to host an in-person one. What would your recommendation be?
And if I understand, the virtual one is not tribal community specific. It's just a generic one, correct?
Exactly. Yeah, it is just the generic, but I will have tribal instructors and we will pull in examples from tribal communities. But I would say if they ask your staff, I would want to let them decide, and I can send y'all a list of other available virtual trainings that are available this semester. But for our communities, I would recommend, if you're okay with virtual and that's what you'd prefer, to take 12-8, and if not, then try to get into the one that we're trying to coordinate.
I don't mind being the guinea pig to see how it works, because I know sometimes virtual doesn't, in person isn't always everybody can get there. So
Yep, and another thing is, like, if y'all want to observe, like if you want to take the training and get certified,
yeah,
let's say you even want to be an instructor and we can fund that, you could like shadow the next one that we do in person. You can still come and attend and be in the space even if you're not taking it, and in that way y'all can compare, like if you have capacity to do that.
Yeah.
And Candace, my request will be, when I speak with Stephen, travel expenses too. So just, travel costs to be covered too. That's typically a standard of what we do. So I will request that, just because we're so far removed from some of our tribal communities.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Hi, this is Angelique Young again. I do have a question about the data. You said that the data that was in the PowerPoint was national data, and that you were interested in North Carolina data. How soon do you think we could get that information, and what would that look like?
So we can pull out the reports out of the learning management system as soon as they complete their certification. But if we wanted to build out our own surveys and kind of have that portion more owned in this area, like that, I think that's also another thing that starts to creep in. Is like if we want to add research things, because the pre and post data, it does ask about the facilitation and the content and things like that, but it really focuses on the knowledge and skills that they were supposed to kind of get. And I just think that we might have different examples if we did, like, say, a focus group. I'm not even thinking we got to do surveys, but if we did focus groups, or if we did one-on-one interviews with folks that participate, we could get some really good insight on how to adapt, or how to, because you can't change the curriculum of the training, but we can make certain accommodations and adaptations to meet the needs of the group, which is kind of what we're talking about with, do we want it in person or virtual? But also there's other things like, do we need supplemental resources? Anytime we do a training, we're gonna create a resource guide, and I got some interns working on this now, but putting together a resource guide for tribal communities for North Carolina. But the ones we've done in Robeson County, Edgecombe County, Martin County, we've just did like a county-wide resource guide. So that is one thing, but from my personal experience, I feel like our people need more of a visual and a way to connect to those resources. And I don't know what that would look like necessarily, but I feel like those are products that could come out of research that we created around, a project like this.
Any other questions? I know I took the tribal community specific training back in 2019 and was incredibly helpful. So definitely recommend anyone who's listening or here kind of on the fence. It's a great training. So thank you for sharing with us today, and we will be in touch about hopefully a SACE supported opportunity in the future. So
Sounds great. I will share a cost sheet with you, just so you know kind of the fees around like materials and things like that.
Sounds great. Well, we're going to pause for lunch. So thank y'all for engaging this morning. We will be back at 1, correct? Lunch will be next door. So those of you attending virtually will be back on at 1 o'clock.
Oh, thank you.
so that she can talk. Oh, okay, great. Well, welcome back from lunch, everyone. Hope you enjoyed your sandwiches or salads. Next up, one moment, please. Next up, we've got Dr. Leslie Locklear.
Thank you. So I am going to pick back up. I know I was initially earlier in the agenda, but wanted the opportunity for our guest presenters to go ahead. There's just a few things that I wanted to provide updates on from the Office of Indian Education. The very first one is that in May, you all had a discussion with Miss Beth Crofts, who is in the same office with Miss Sneha Coltrane, and you discussed with her AP enrollment. I really wanted to follow up with her concerning AP enrollment for American Indian students on both, not only the enrollment numbers, but in the achievement. So I am actually going to have her meet with our Title VI coordinators and directors to discuss what we can do to increase AP enrollment and achievement for American Indian students. I'm also really interested in hearing from the field, what are the barriers, and if our students are taking another route, what route are they taking, and how might that inform what her office does regarding AP exams. So we have scheduled a meeting for that, so I just wanted to let you know I followed up with Miss Beth. The other thing is I'm excited to say that the Halawasa Pony Tribe, in partnership with NCDPI's Office of Indian Education, was funded by the Federal Office of Indian Education, a grant, a little under $3 million for the life of the grant of 5 years for a program that they're calling Red Earth Strong Roots Bright Futures Program, strengthening literacy and college and career readiness with tribal wisdom. So this program is the opportunity for the Halawasa Pony to focus on early literacy for not only their youth, but also educating their family and community members. So I am really excited about that opportunity, hoping to set up a model that can then be replicated across the state. So again, a huge shout out to the Halawasa Pony Tribe. They are the lead grantees in submitting this in partnership with DPI. I know Dr. Tiffany also shared UNC Pembroke also received one of those. They're called Native Youth Community Project grants. And then the Lumbee Tribe also received one of those NYCP grants. So really excited for what's to happen for the youth in North Carolina regarding how much funding will be coming down from the Office of Indian Education. Again, as we start out the year, just wanted to remind you, we have 21 programs in North Carolina that are Title VI programs. One of those is in a BIE school, so they do not fall under the purview of my role, but we do have 20 programs in total. I know a lot of times you all get asked how many programs we have, just so you have that number. And what I've also done since coming back in August is I really wanted to figure out how could we get more schools to get funding for Title VI. As you all know, eligibility is just those 10 students, so pretty easy. We actually have 68 PSUs or school units that are eligible. And what I've done is I've sent them a recruitment email, let them know what the Title VI program and funding is, and met with some of them to say this is an opportunity that would benefit your American Indian students. Let me know if you're interested. I may be reaching out to some of you all or the Title VI directors and coordinators if they are local to you, like a neighboring district, just in case we can provide some support. I also wanted to share, and this is in partnership with Dr. Olivia Oxendine, we have the Indian Education Association Sandhills Collaborative Partnership. This is a partnership in the Sandhills region of the State Board's regions, and we meet regularly in terms of talking about American Indian student and achievement, and I know Ms. Tamara's been part of that, Candace has been a part of that, so we are looking forward to continuing that, and again, trying to set up a model for collaboration and communication from districts, tribes, and Title VI programs that would foster the increased academic achievement of American Indian students. I am starting work on the SACE report. As you all know, that work starts pretty immediately as soon as the State Board approves that data. I will share a little bit more about that when we go into the subcommittees regarding that SACE report. But that initial work has started, and you all met virtually Amanda Hobbs. She is going to be running point this year on that with us. I've met with her. She is fantastic. So really excited about partnering with her on that data and accountability for us. I think Superintendent Green already shared, but there is the Achieving Educational Excellence Regional Tour. I will resend this out. I cannot share enough about how important it is that we are represented on this regional tour. It is extremely important that our tribal communities, our tribal council members, our chairmen and chiefs are present at these regional tour opportunities. I've sent it out to them, but again, if you could help me reiterate, I will share those dates and times of those meetings so that we can make sure we are present, because that is extremely important to make sure that the American Indian community is knowledgeable about this strategic plan, but also has a presence in that communication. Then the last thing that I wanted to share with you all is the Department of Natural and Cultural Resources, in partnership with their Keenan Fellowship Program, will be going on a Lumbee tour, and they have extended the invitation to SACY. And I want to give a huge shout out to Dr. Connie Locklear, who helped set up this tour for the Keenan Fellowship Program. She's one of their fellows this year, and they have extended the invitation to SACY members to join on that Lumbee tour with Mr. Kenneth Hunt. If you've never been on the tour of Robeson County, I would heavily encourage you to go. It is a great learning opportunity. If you are interested in going, it will take place on October 15th. And there's an RSVP. You just need to RSVP by October 12th. I will send that out. So if you are interested in that, it's a free opportunity, just an opportunity to engage with the Department of Natural and Cultural Resources and the Keenan Fellowship Program, and they wanted to open that to SACY members. It will leave from the Office of Indian Ed in Robeson County on that 15th, but I will send out that RSVP. Any questions? I know I ran through those. Any questions about those updates?
So just to clarify, Dr. Leslie, the eligible PSUs, I see you've got 68. That's 68 that currently do not have programs,
Yes,
but are
sir.
eligible to receive
Yes, sir.
programs.
Mhm.
Okay.
So the way I got that number is I just pulled American Indian student enrollment from the previous year. I went through that document and then found programs that would have the eligible number of students literally starting at 10. So that may have changed if students matriculate. We know students leave, they move. So, but I am really hoping that some of these PSUs decide to apply for the Title VI funding. Of course, our larger populations are taken care of, in terms of what we already have in that 20. But again, a great opportunity for some of our districts that even have smaller numbers.
I'm even wondering if there's an opportunity with your collaborative conversations to have some training on how to do a consortium. I know Wake County's done that and Robeson County's done that. Speaking for myself, I feel like I'm a little confused on what that process would look like if I wanted to do that with, like, Forsyth County, for example.
Gotcha.
But, yeah. Any other questions?
All right, so the next thing that I wanted to share with you all is regarding the updates that we receive to any of the academic material here at NCDPI. Typically what the process has been is things are sent to me and I'm asked to share with SACY. And so I then push things out. But I want to be very transparent and understanding. First of all, you all have full-time jobs. You have full-time responsibilities. I send a lot of emails. So your capacity to sometimes review in depth these documents is limited. But we know that it is important because then they will say to me, did SACY review it? So as a way for us to confirm SACY's review, you will now see when I push out things and ask you to look ahead of time, I am going to make them a part of our agenda to confirm that we looked at those documents. I would say that most times the information and content that I'm asking you to look at does not directly speak to Indigenous students. It does not directly involve our content, but there was a case recently where it did. So you'll see here I have the K through 12 social studies and packing the standards documents updates. So these standards that were out publicly misspelled the names of some of our tribal communities. did not list fully all of our tribal communities. And one of our students, Ben Caswell, was an intern with the State Department this year, went through these documents, found these errors, and then brought them to DPI for correction. So I wanted to let you know those will be coming out for correction. The academics office and standards team here have corrected all of those documents and will be re-releasing them to the they send it usually to social studies directors to say, hey, we've had some updates, make sure you're pulling the right information. But just wanted to make you aware of that. And so we don't necessarily need to vote on that because those are still being released, but we will need to vote that you have seen and approved the K through 12 science updates that I sent out. I also looked through those. I had no concerns or feedback, so there was nothing from me, but I just wanted to send them out to you all as well. And I've asked Chair Stephen if we can also have a motion on the floor and a vote to approve that SACY has seen those and approves that they are fine. If you want discussion, that is okay. But just wanted to make sure we have that process. If you see that process moving forward, that is why I want to make sure our eyes see things that are important and catch any errors as often as we can.
Thanks, Dr. Leslie. Any questions or discussion? Okay. So just need to make a motion for the science standards.
Yes.
Specifically, okay. So just need to have a motion to approve the K-12 science support documents.
Candace Revels, I make a motion to approve the North Carolina K-12 science documents, updates.
Tamara Carter, second.
Thank you. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. Thank you, Dr. Leslie.
Thank you. And then the last part of what I'm going to share today is I touched base with Chair Bell when we talked about the work of SACY, and then also how can we bring this work to a little bit of a deeper level in terms of what we want SACY to do. And as we all know, the Office of Indian Education at DPI is an office of one. That is me. So the subcommittee, for example, for American Indian Education Summit was extremely helpful to me in being able to meet a little bit more frequently off of the SACY regular meeting schedule to get feedback and support. So we have decided to implement a subcommittee structure that will allow us to get a little bit more work done, and then these subcommittees will come to the larger SACY committee meeting and provide that information and feedback. So some of you went through and suggested what your tops were, and then what I also did was I looked at your background and your strengths and really plugged in some people in certain places where I knew your feedback would be helpful to the group. And so we will have 3 subcommittees: the American Indian Education Summit, Strategic Planning, and SACY Report. We attempted to have meetings before this meeting, but our schedules are crazy, and so I decided let's maximize our time together here today and spend just a little bit of time meeting, and then we can come back together at a different time. So what I have done, if you will take a look and know where you belong, I'm going to go to the next slide. I've just kind of drafted out what I would hope we would accomplish today in terms of the summit. And I'm sorry, Calvin, you're the only person from your team for the summit. And what today's goal will be for the summit, that will be for the 2027 American Indian Education Summit. Today, the goal is really just to talk about frequency of meetings. How frequently can you meet as a subcommittee, and what days and times work best for you? I will be in charge of setting all of that up, but just want to get an idea for that. I will say to my SACY report people, I need you immediately. So the quicker, the better for the SACY report. Your work will be a little bit heavier in the beginning. So our meetings for the SACY report may be a little bit heavier in the initial part, and of course wane off in the spring. As well, strategic planning is another one that's needed a little bit more frequently. So what I'm going to ask today is if we could break off into those meetings here, those subcommittee meetings while we are here, and we're just going to take maybe 15 minutes to discuss, and I'm going to leave this screen up. If you need to go back to your committee group, I can, but if we can break off into those, that would be great.
appreciate not having to drive all the way there.
So I will ask if your committees, if you would just share the information from that you've discussed today with me via email, and I will follow up with you all separately. If it is beneficial for us to have time in every meeting for you to have a small breakout in person, we can also facilitate that as well, because I know all of our subcommittee meetings will be virtual, so we can facilitate that as well. Chair Bell, we are checking right now to see if our next presenter will be joining us. So if you want to give us just a few minutes to check on that, and subcommittees, if you want to share that information. This past year, we had 95 RSVP. The plan was we estimated 120. We had 90 RSVP, but we only had 70 come. But I will say it was rescheduled, which I think caused an issue. And then I also really want to ramp up, think about who our audience is and how early we reach out to people, which is why I've asked the summit to start early. Because I think if we promote it and reach out, I would love for it to be around 120. And our budget this past year was around $5,000. But if we have a sponsor or another host organization, it was easier at Campbell because we had Dr. Alfred Bryant, who was able to reserve. So we paid no venue spaces. We really only paid food and a guest speaker. Yes, we had a weather event, so we had to cancel at the end of January, reschedule. So I really think that caused some of the issues with attendance. But I would really love for us to get to that 100, 120 number.
And what date are we shooting for?
So,
I'm supposed to be planning.
no, you're fine. I asked historical information about that, and I was told that it's always held at the end of January because that is a time when there's not a lot of other conferences going on. There's not as much going on. Now, that doesn't mean it can't be changed. That's just been the standard. I asked why was it, it was January a reason. Yep. Anything else on the subcommittees? So I will say for those listening on live stream, all of our subcommittee meetings will be public meetings, and the links will be provided on the SACE website under the American Indian Education Office. So links to all of the meetings will be shared there so that anyone interested in terms of the public can join and listen in on those meetings. And I will turn it back over to you, Chair Bell.
So just confirming we don't have any updates from Commission of Indian Affairs?
I do not. Miss Dorothy, have you had an update? If not, I will email. If he reaches out to me, I will email those out to everyone.
Yeah. that works.
I know, that the housing program had to be shut down for the government shutdown. So I know they're doing stuff around that, but I was thinking that finished on Wednesday. So I don't know. I've sent him an email and I've tried calling he and his secretary and neither answer. So.
That's all right, but if great. Any before we close, any announcements from anybody? Anything you want to share? Anything that we can take to our communities? Yeah, Calvin.
I have a couple of things.
Make sure.
I have a couple of things, Chairman Bell. First is I talked to Ms. Leslie about this earlier, Dr. Leslie about this earlier. I would like to propose we start a way to communicate, I guess, outside this meeting that's not necessarily a email thread. I suggest Slack, just because I use Slack at work and it's easier for me to. That's easy for me, but willing to host other ideas that the committee might want to or the group might want to use to do that. I just think it would be good to be able to communicate. As you're going throughout your day, if you come across something that you want to, maybe introduce in the next meeting or just, throw ideas at your colleagues, it's there, it's easy to get to, that kind of thing. But that was the one thing that I wanted to bring up. I think it would give us a channel to, kind of get those ideas out there. And then the other thing was, I hate to do this again. I'm promoting ACES for a lot of different things, but I'm the vice president of the ACES professional chapter, and just wanted to put out there that everybody's gone this week to the ACES National Conference, and want to encourage you to, like I said, get those ideas out there around STEM education, and getting our students to be involved in these things, because on a national level, when they get to go out there and see all those other students that are doing that at that national level, I think it kind of, it sparks something. It sparks something in me to want to get involved with the organization, and it sparked something within people like Sonny Myers and Ashley Lomboy and Michael Sanderson, Ryan Emanuel. When I got out there and saw all those folks there, it kind of made me think, hey, this is something that I think our kids would definitely benefit from. So if you want someone to come to your organization and talk about ACES, I can do that. Thank you.
Yeah, great. Thank you. In terms of the communication channel, Dr. Leslie, do you have any direction on with us being a state committee, how does that impact in terms of public records request and?
I can ask. I know that our meetings must be public, public notice, public record. I will double check on any background. I will also share, Calvin made a good point, I've never shared the directory so that you have each other's contact information, phone number, and email address. If you all are okay with that, I will share that as well so you have that directory information. I will double check to see, but I can ask, do people use Google, Microsoft? What is your preferred shared method of working? Because even as we work in subcommittees, you will likely have shared things, but I don't know what you all prefer.
I use Google. Google.
I can use Google or chat or Slack, whatever.
Anything but Teams, please.
Yes, I agree.
We at DPI use Microsoft Teams, but there is an option. We do have Google access to some things, but let me also check to see if there's a different communication route that other advisory committees take that may not require you to set up like a whole different something. I will research that and come back in as soon as I can with clarity on that. I also wanted to share a quick announcement. Hope County's Indian Education Program is having a STEM day tomorrow. It's tomorrow at 9 a.m. So really excited for them. Want to celebrate them. I also, sorry y'all know I'm from Hope County. I also want to shout out Hope County. They had a purse bingo. Their Indian Education Association had a purse bingo, and I would be remiss if I said I had the time of my life. They literally just played bingo. People donated purses. It was about 80 women in a room. Christina got people to donate food. It was a fantastic time. I wish she would do this once a month, but I knew it was a lot of planning. But they used the funds to send their youth to NCNAO and other conferences that are not funded in the grant. But I wanted to share that in case you're like, what is Purse Bingo? It was a huge hit, a huge success. So many women came out, and I say women, sorry, Calvin, and Stephen, it was all the ladies that came out. And if you are interested in something similar, I would suggest you contact her. It's a very unique fundraiser. I had never heard of it before and had never participated. This was my first time, and I could have stayed there 10 hours. We laughed and joked, but it basically was bingo and you won a pocketbook. So it was a great opportunity for them to raise money for their Indian Education Program in a unique way. And she had the students there taking tickets. The students helped set up, and the students also walked around with the purses when we were playing bingo. So, yeah.
I have one announcement. Just want to personally invite everyone to our 53rd Waccamaw Siouan Powwow on October 17th and 18th. We will have school day on Friday, October 17th, where we have around 1,000 fourth graders from Columbus County and surrounding counties.
I also wanted to encourage any of our local tribes or organizations to consider submitting a proposal for the Social Studies Conference that's held in February. Last year, there was only one session on American Indians at the whole Social Studies Conference. So that information is due December 1st. So you can go online and find information about that. I know that Dr. Leslie is working on a proposal, but if any of your tribes would like to, or your organizations, I would like to see a lot more of them presented. Also, it's an open invitation for any of the tribes or organizations to set up a table at their booths that they have. So, but I think it's like $500 that you have to pay. But if you've got the funds and, want to set up a booth to inform, most of the attendees of this is our North Carolina Social Studies teachers. So this would be an excellent way that we could promote that. And I also think, Dr. Leslie, I don't know what your idea is, but we need to inform these teachers about the SACE module that was set up about our different tribes in North Carolina. Or if so, or within your session, if you could advertise that.
And what I would also ask, if you know outstanding social studies teachers in your district that are doing things related to American Indian culture, I'm happy to help them even write the proposal. Again, my goal is never to add work, it's to decrease. I'm happy to help them write the proposal. I just need additional people to present, as I can only be in so many places. But if I have additional people, I'm willing to help write the proposal. I just need people committed to being there and presenting the information. So if you know an outstanding teacher, if they've done an outstanding project related to social studies, history, that would be great. You can partner with them, whatever it may be, but we just need those proposals submitted. I will say the Social Studies Council has reached out, and they are eager to get our proposals. We just got to get them to them.
I just shared with an instructional facilitator and a social studies teacher.
I just have a question. What was the module, the SACE module you were referring to?
So it's the American Indian. Oh, I'm trying to find the exact name on the learning. There's an exact name for it. I will email it out. That there's an exact name, and if they don't search exactly right in the Canvas that teachers have access to, it will not come up. But I can email that out because it's not called. I know it's SACES, but it's called like culture responsive. But I'll find that and email out to you.
Okay, thank you.
And teachers can complete that module and get CEUs for it.
I think it's like culturally responsive teaching about American Indians in North Carolina. Yeah. But it's in nieces, not.
It is currently under revision. I have put a notice up to limit enrollment while I revise. Yeah. So I'm trying, there were broken links and just information that hadn't been updated. So that is my current project, is a revamp to make sure everything's working. All of the websites are working that information.
Did you say that was in Canvas?
It is in Canvas. And only educators can access it, which I know was another thing that Stacey talked about. It is not accessible by anybody not in the school system.
So educators could sign up on their nieces account.
Actually, I have one final thing. I just wanted to put a shout out to Triangle Native American Society's website. They put up all the events. So there's a community meeting coming up Monday night. Dick's Powwow is coming up next Saturday, and then Apex's Indigenous Peoples Day is actually that following Monday. And then, also the American Indian Heritage Celebration, which is going to be at the Department of, the Museum of Art this year.
What date is there a date for that?
That is it's the same day as the Christmas parade. That's how I remember it.
22nd.
The 22nd of November. Cordially invite all of you to the Triangle area for all of those things. Since that's where I'm at. At any rate, thank you.
Do we have a date for the online learning? Is that been confirmed?
It's the 21st.
Okay.
I've not received any promotional materials.
I haven't either.
So is that something, I know usually.
Can you give me more?
Yeah, so the same group that does the celebration on Saturday, there's a virtual experience on Friday
Education
that
Day.
morning, the Education Day.
Yeah.
I know we used to get like flyers and posters that we could send out.
I can reach out about that.
Okay.
I can ask Cody Sutherland about it since he's on the planning committee usually, so I can find out some information
Okay.
as well.
That'd be great.
Little Turtle is the one that heads it up. Kaya.
Okay. Any other questions, announcements? All right. Well, we just need a motion to adjourn.
If no further business, I move we adjourn. Dorothy Yates.
Second, Tamara Carter.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. We are adjourned. Y'all have a great weekend and get home safe.